And this video is entitled Gaza, the Way Forward, Part 2. In Part 1, we have dwelt on Gog and Magog, those who control power in Israel today, who are perpetrating what increasingly appears to be a genocide of the Palestinian people, are Gog and Magog. And those who control power in the modern Western world are also the same Gog and Magog. And I don't like to use the term Hamas. I prefer to use the term the authentic Islamic resistance, but it seems as though I have to use the term Hamas for reasons I don't need to explain. Hamas, if they are to survive in the future, and that is a question mark now whether Hamas would survive, it depends upon whether or not Hamas are willing to accept that the enemy that they face, Gog and Magog, is an enemy which they cannot defeat. They can only checkmate that enemy the way that Zulkarnain checkmated them, and Russia is going to checkmate Gog and Magog a second time. The second of the two currents is coming now. If Hamas were to adopt this position, then their strategy would be different from what they adopted last October. And that brings us to the second video now on Gaza, the Way Forward. Surah Al-Kahf of the Quran has given us the mother of all warnings concerning the difference between appearance and reality in the end time. And it is there in the encounter between Khidr alayhi salam and Musa. On 3 occasions, conventional Islamic scholarship was wrong. Number 1, the boat. Number 2, the boy. And number 3, the wall. On all 3 occasions, the action of Khidr alayhi salam was something perceived to be negative. This is conventional Islamic scholarship. But the penetrative Islamic scholarship of Khidr alayhi salam, which penetrates the internal reality of things, delivered a different verdict, and that is that his response was appropriate and correct, because appearance and reality differed from each other. And this is the mother of all warning, that in akhirulzaman events will occur, and if we were to determine our understanding of the event on the basis of its external appearance, we can be mistaken that it is not the external appearance, but rather the internal reality which will give us the proper understanding of the event. I cannot reaffirm this more than I'm doing now, and it's there in my book entitled Surah Al-Kahf from the Modern Age. The schoolboys who follow Satan, the shayateen amongst us, will jump up on a table and start screaming conspiracy theory, but you cannot refute the Quran with such nonsense. Rather, it is a very serious subject when appearance and reality differ with each other, and schoolboys looking only at the appearance of things are deceived because they cannot penetrate the reality. And it takes some time to be able to penetrate the reality of things. And what happened last October with Hamas, which is launching this phenomenal attack on Israel, which by external appearances caught Israel by surprise. And that was the external appearance. The reality was otherwise. This event that took place last October, 6 months or more ago, it took me by surprise as well. And it took some time for me to be able to penetrate the internal reality of the event. If it was Sulaiman alayhi salam, the prophet King Solomon, with like an instant and he will be able to penetrate reality, but not Imran. So now I understand that what happened last October was that a trap was set for Hamas, in the same way that a trap was set for Saddam Hussein when he attacked Kuwait. And Saddam Hussein was too innocent to be able to read and understand the trap, and he walked into the trap, and they got a chance to then respond and to destroy Iraq the way they did. And that destruction is still continuing up to now. Similarly, with Gaza, I now realize, and of course there are many schoolboys who will jump up on the table and start shouting conspiracy theory, but they're a waste of time. We don't have to bother about them. I now realize that the trap was set for Hamas, and it was set jointly by Israel and by Saudi Arabia. 25 years ago, I used to say that Saudi Arabia and Israel were sisters. I now realize I was wrong. 25 years ago, they were only cousins at that time. Now they are sisters with Mohammed bin Salman. Now they are sisters. And so a trap was set by the two sisters, Saudi Arabia and Israel, to trap Hamas. And that is how Hamas was led to believe that if we do not attack at the time when we attacked, Saudi Arabia was going to recognize Israel. That was the trap. And Hamas fell for the trap. It was part of the trap. And it was Saudi Arabia who assisted Israel. On Judgment Day, I believe the events will be confirmed as I'm saying it is now. I am confident of this. The Saudi Arabia assisted Israel to have the passage through which the weapons which were intended for Ukraine were siphoned off, and instead they reached Gaza using contacts in Saudi Arabia. And Hamas was too innocent to realize what was happening. State-of-the-art weapons and drones were able to reach Hamas in Israel because it was part of the plan. The government of Israel allowed the attack to take place, allowed more than 1,000 Israeli citizens to be killed because they had a bigger plan at stake. In the same way that the United States government allowed 9/11 to take place, and so many innocent people were killed. Of course, there were those who were told not to go to work on that day, and they stayed home. And so you will not find their names on the gravestones in the cemetery. No. Those who were not informed, they went to work and they died. And so lots of people, innocent people, died on 9/11. The United States government sacrificed their lives because they had a bigger plan at stake. They wanted to be able to pin the blame on Afghanistan, to be able to send their troops to Afghanistan, not just to subdue Afghanistan, but it seems to me as though the larger plan was to try to reduce, to denuclearize Pakistan. But that did not succeed. They did not subdue Afghanistan, and they did not denuclearize Pakistan, but they created havoc in the region in consequence of 9/11. Similarly, the plan of the Israeli government in allowing Hamas to launch the attack in October, knowing that the attack was coming. They were warned that the attack was coming, and they allowed it to take place, just as the U.S. government did, in order that their plan could unfold. What was the plan? Why did they allow Hamas to launch that attack? Why did they allow the weapons to get into Gaza, with which the attack was launched? And why did they allow the attack to be launched and 1,000 or more Israeli citizens to be killed? Why? Answer number one. They hope that as a consequence of the chance now, the implications of the attack that launched by Hamas was that they would now be able to respond and do things to Hamas and to the Palestinians which otherwise could not be done, because public opinion would not allow it. But when Hamas launched that attack, they now got favorable conditions to respond in the way that they responded. Why? What plan are they following? Number one, to try to turn the Palestinian people against Hamas, and therefore to be able to eliminate Hamas as a rival, as a force hostile to Israel. They would prefer to get secular Palestinian nationalism in charge of the Palestinian people rather than the Islamic resistance. That plan has not as yet succeeded. And I am recording this video hoping that these words will reach Gaza, so that our young men in Gaza, our young lions, will not abandon Hamas, would continue to be recruited to join the ranks of Hamas. I call them the Islamic resistance, so that Hamas becomes stronger than it was even before. However, the risk is, despite the fact that I'm making this appeal for more and more young men to join Hamas, the possibility exists, I have to accept it, that Israel will continue to inflict more and more horrible massacres of Palestinian people, and no one will be able to stop it until the Palestinian people have suffered sufficiently to be able to blame Hamas for their suffering and then turn against Hamas. That would be Israel's first success. The second plan that Israel has, that I'm now realizing, is that they want to drive the Palestinian people out of Gaza. And that is why all the Palestinians from the north have been driven down to the south. And as they're being driven out, Israel is destroying all the buildings. So the place becomes uninhabitable. Even if there is peace, you can't go back, because there is nowhere to go back to live. And Israel would not allow the reconstruction of buildings. So the plan seems to be ethnic cleansing. Get the Palestinians out of Gaza. Where to go? At this time, they are trapped in the south of Gaza, either in Sinai or in Egypt. And if the bloodbath continues sufficiently, then the barriers might break one day, and the Palestinians are going to flow out of Gaza, and there'll be no one to stop it. Egypt won't be able to stop it. The Egyptian armed forces will not obey the government to prevent the people who are suffering beyond endurance from escaping from further suffering. The third plan, this is number one, to get Gaza, the people of Palestine, of Gaza, to turn away from Hamas, to remove Hamas as a force from Gaza. Number two, to get the Palestinians out of Gaza, so eventually Gaza will become peopled by Jews and become a part of Greater Israel. And number three, that the massacre, continuing massacre of Muslims and Christians in Gaza will eventually reach such a terrible state that Hezbollah will not be able to restrain itself and open a second front against Israel. If Hezbollah were to open that front against Israel, then even in my first response, way back in October, I said that will open the door for Israel to reach Tehran and to attack the Iranian nuclear installations. If Israel does not succeed in destroying them completely, Israel would at least be able to effect sufficient destruction of Iranian's nuclear installation to be able to ensure that Iran does not pose any immediate threat to Israel. I think these are the three objectives that Israel is pursuing in its bloodbath in Gaza. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is on the side of those who are believers, then it is not just by praying to Allah that we survive, but by following the guidance in the Quran, which I've given in Gaza, the Way Forward, Part 1, and that is that you have to respond to Gog and Magog in the way that Zulkarnain did. Thank you. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.